It's we're not even one sharp anymore. I'm already one dull here. It's after one, so I promised y'all one sharp. So, Mr. Clerk, if you'll ring the bell, we'll come back to order. Members will come to order, and please take your seats. Please take your seats. Doorkeepers, you don't need to lock the doors, but if you'll close the doors, that'll be great. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions?
Commending Sheriff Cullen Talton upon his 50th career anniversary, recognizing and commending Mr. Young-Ho Koo. Congratulating and commending Tony Butts for receiving the 2023 Yellow Rose Nikki T. Randall Service Leader Award, recognizing the historical importance of Bilali Muhammad, a prominent Muslim and African American from Sapelo Island, Georgia. Recognizing March 25th, 2023 as Georgia Barbecue Day, recognizing and commending Grace Elizabeth Beasley Terrell, recognizing February 27th, 2023 as Dominican Republican Independence Day, recognizing and commending Judge Mark Anthony Scott on his outstanding public service, honoring the life and memory of Mary Wilson Beasley. Commemorating the 50th anniversary of the establishment of the National Wild Turkey Federation, and commending Doree Nix, Berrien High School's 2023 Star Teacher. And for other purposes, that completes the reading of the privileged resolutions.
Is there any objection to adopting the privileged resolutions? Chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. We are ready to move back to the rules calendar. Chairman Blackman, are you ready? Well, you can take your time. I just want to make sure you're ready, making sure you're on the floor. It's good to see you. The clerk will read the caption to HB 269.
House Bill 269 by Representative Blackman and the 146 and others to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 5014-1 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to meetings open to the public, limitation on action to contest agency action, recording, notice of time and place, access to minutes, and telecommunication conferences. This bill having referred to the Committee on Governmental Affairs, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Chair recognizes the Chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Chairman Blackman, to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Fellow members, bring before you House Bill 269, which would allow our workforce development boards to meet via teleconference. It's permissive and particularly helpful to our rural boards. We especially want to thank the co-sponsors, Representative Douglas, and for applying his studies regarding space and time to this piece of legislation. Mr. Speaker, I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I don't have any, and looks like the members don't have any as well. So you don't have any questions?
Well, thank you.
Well, I take that we had a last second. Representative Barnes from the 86th has a question to your left.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I yield.
Does the gentleman yield? Sorry.
I yield.
Is it not true that this will allow more access for patients with the teleconference method?
I believe you know of what you speak.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I ask for the body's favorable consideration. Yield the well.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? For what purpose does Representative Maynor rise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that last year we transferred about $60 million or so from the Labor Department to the Technical College System of Georgia for the purpose of the Workforce Opportunity and Innovation Act? And this bill in particular will continue to help those local colleges with this.
I know the gentlelady knows of what she speaks. Thank you for the question or the inquiry. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 153, the nays are 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to SB 291? HB, sorry. Yeah, this is the House, isn't it? Sorry about that. That tells you where my mind is sometimes. HB 291, Mr. Clerk. Thank you.
House Bill 291 by Representative Scoggins, the 14th, and others to be entitled an act to amend Title 29 of the Official Code of Georgia Antietam relating to guardian and ward, so as to add to the list of providers who are authorized to participate in the processes for appointment of a guardian for an adult. This bill having referred to the Committee on Juvenile Justice, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
That should prove to our friends over across the way that I hold them in such high regard that I would grace them with calling a House bill with an SB in front of it. So I promise you I won't do that again. Chair recognizes Representative Scoggins to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That SB could also stand for Scoggins bill, too. So,
I wasn't fast enough to think about that. If I'd have been covering the ground, I would have. Thank you there, Representative.
thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I bring to you House Bill 291, LC 491196. This is being brought on behalf of the Probate Judges Council of the state of Georgia. This is a bill that simply expands the list of people who can basically evaluate someone that's in need of a guardianship. Currently, only physicians and psychologists can do this. This expands the list of people who are able to do those evaluations. The judges were getting backlogged with problems having to find someone to do the evaluation, and I think this will help solve that problem. And I'm open for questions if we have any questions.
You have no questions.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your yes vote on this bill. Thank you.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee's substitute? The chair hears none. The committee's substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 165, the nays 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, if you'll read the caption to HB 301, HB 301.
House Bill 301 by Representative Ridley of the 6th and others to be entitled an act to amend Title 40 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to motor vehicles and traffic so as to revise the amount of civil monetary penalty for violations of improperly passing a school bus and speeding in a school zone. This bill having referred to the Committee on Motor Vehicles. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Representative Jason Ridley is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for not confusing me with my other person that's got my last name. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this bill, I think we've all had complaints about the school cameras and the fines that we've been getting. And what House Bill 301 does is two things, really simple. One, we had some bad actors out there that were the fine was $25. The fee, most of the fee that you could charge was $25, but what they were doing after you got a fine, a few weeks later, you were getting a bill in the mail for fees, but there were multiple fees and they were all under $25. So what we've done on the first section is we've made that say, well, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. It's not on the first section, it's on the back page of the bill. We inserted a total of $25 and no additional fines or fees, penalties, or charges shall be authorized. The second thing that it does, because of those bad actors, we needed to put some teeth in this bill. So what it does now is if you go outside of that, you're going to be issued a $1,000 fine, and that would go to the Commissioner of the Public Safety. I know kids are our number one priority here, and these things do work. We have seen the downtick in the speeding, and you can see all these whenever they got the fines and the tickets that they issue, they go down as people get used to them be there. But we just had some issues. The second thing that this bill does is these fines were outside the 35% of the law enforcement agency's budget. If y'all remember a few years ago, well, it's been a lot of years ago, we had issues, it was called policing for profit, where these little counties were basically doing their whole budget off of fines. So now what happened, the General Assembly came in, they said you can only have 35% of those tickets, traffic fines, of your budget. So this was not under that, it is under it now. ACCG, GMA, and the Police Chiefs Association all was in the meeting whenever we done this. They all agreed to it, and that's what the bill does. I'll take any questions if anybody has any.
Gentleman has a couple of questions. Does he yield?
I yield, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Jasmine Clark to your left has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
So does this bill do anything to address when those fines can be, when a person can get a ticket for, speeding through a school zone, particularly outside of school hours?
This bill does not. I think Chairman Jay Collins has got one that's going to address that issue about when you can run it and when you can't run it. But this right here, all it's doing is just is saying this $25 fee, and it does go under the 35% cap.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, further yield.
I do.
Chairman Collins has a question for you straight in front of you.
Does my friend yield?
I do to Mr. Chairman. Go ahead.
Is it not true that this bill does nothing to address if these civil monetary penalties are not paid? This bill does nothing to address that issue that we're having for our used car dealers and people who are trading cars, and these penalties are on titles. This bill does nothing to clean any of that up. Is that correct?
No, sir. I think the one you got, we're working on getting that fixed.
Okay. You yield for another question?
I do.
Do you feel, as I do, Representative, that these school camera machines that are helping slow some of these people down on these school zones, that's a good piece of legislation because we want to protect our young people during a vulnerable time in the mornings when people are dropping kids off and picking kids up in the afternoons? Do you agree with that?
I do 100%
premise on
agree with that.
Okay, thank you.
Gentlemen, yield for a couple more.
Yes, sir. I yield.
Chairman David Knight, to your right, has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
Appreciate the gentleman bringing the bill. Isn't it true? And isn't it true we spoke about the problems that are going on within this issue? Isn't it further true that made note, and you and I discussed, that the fines are actually getting sent to the companies and then remitted back to the local law enforcement agencies?
Yes, sir. And to kind of elaborate on that a little bit, what we learned in this is somebody's supposed to be checking off these at your local police department. Whenever a fine comes in, they're supposed to check it off, but it does. So when it takes the picture, it goes to the camera company in Utah or wherever it's at. They submit it back. The local police department is supposed to be checking off to make sure that is a viable violation. But we have found out that some people have not been. It's just been coming straight through. And the other thing is the current law says 30 days from the time of the infraction. Well, it may be 2 or 3 weeks before you get the actual ticket in the mail.
Well, I want to thank the gentleman for working on this, and if he needs further help, such as an amendment, maybe looking for an alternative way to safely handle these school zones, I'd be happy to step up and help the gentleman.
Well, I appreciate my friend. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
To your left, Representative Williams, Mary Frances Williams, has a question, if you'll yield.
Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you so much for bringing Section 1 especially. My question is about Section 2. How does this, how does the add-on, the changing in the add-on, adding on of fines affect super speeder bills? Because aren't those like two separate? Isn't there one locally and then another one that's issued separately?
That, I don't know, I'll be honest with you, I don't know how that will affect with the super speeder. I'm not sure if the super speeder goes under that 35% or if it's outside of that 35%. And I mean, I'm not going to stand up here and act like I do, but I don't. But I do know this, and I'd like to give this example. Tallulah Falls, Georgia, there was an article in the paper the other day where their entire city budget is $419,000. The police department's entire annual budget's $126,000. Since September of 22, they've made $697,000 in fines. That's whenever we start running the problem. They're on schedule to make $1.6 million this year off of these, and that's when you start getting in that situation. Is it really for safety or is it really for money? And I think our number one priority is safety.
Representative Yield for one more. This one's important.
Yes, sir.
This is Representative Franklin. US 301 runs through the heart of his district, so I figured he had a question since there was something about 301.
Yes, sir. Do you
Representative
yield?
Franklin.
Yes, sir. I yield to my friend.
Is it not true this is the best bill I've heard all day, and I'm very thankful for you bringing it?
I would 100% agree with you. This is the best bill you've heard all day.
Thank you, sir.
You have one final question if the gentleman will yield.
All right, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield for one more. This is not my first time, by the way.
Well, yeah, I heard that too. But anyway, now this next question should have been handled, but I'll allow it. Representative Maynard, since she sits one person away from you, has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
The $1,000 fine, where does that go to?
We've got to put a serious stop. This is a serious issue. What we're having is counties, they'll get the fine for $100 on the actual infraction, A few weeks later, they'll get another bill in the mail that's not a fine, it's just the fees, and it's as much or more than the fine is with these little fees. The current law already said $25, but we have some violators out there, so we want to make some serious, draw some serious attention to it. So that's where we came up with a $1,000 fine.
Does the gentleman further yield?
I do.
So once the law enforcement agency is fined for the $1,000, where do they send that $1,000 to?
To the Public Safety Commissioner.
And is there do you further yield?
I do.
Is there a specific place within the Public Safety Commissioner where they're going to use the $1,000?
That I'm not sure about. I guess maybe next year we'll revisit and see how many fines we got and see where we need to direct that to, but I'm sure we'll probably look at something.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentleman
Mr.
has
Speaker,
no further questions. You did a great job.
in the words of Forrest Gump, that's all I got to say about that. Thank you. I yield the way.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of passage of the bill will vote yes. All opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 163, the nays 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Members, if you will join me in welcoming an old friend of my family's. Our families have known each other for 100 years or more, probably. Superior Court Judge Curry Mingledorf from the Piedmont Circuit. We've recently become acquainted with one another, but the Mingledorf family came from down in Effingham County quite a while back, and we've gotten to know each other a little bit today and looking forward to getting to know him better. But if you House members, if you'll welcome Judge Curry Mingledorf. Thank y'all, I appreciate that. The clerk will read the caption to HB 309, HB 309.
House Bill 309 by Representative Cooper, the 45th and others, to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 7 to Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to regulation of hospitals and related institutions, so as revised provisions relating to financial stability requirements for applicants and licensees of personal care homes and assisted living communities. This bill I referred to the Committee on Human Relations and Aging. That committee recommends that this bill do pass. Chair Lady Sharon Cooper is recognized to present House Bill 309. Chair Lady Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I bring to you House Bill 309. About 3 years ago, when we had a big scandal across our state on how people were being treated in assisted living facilities and nursing homes and large personal care homes, we rewrote the laws for them, strengthening their staffing ratios and putting in rules to make sure that the people who owned these and had new startups were financially sound. On that area, on the financial soundness, we had asked CPAs to do some things like certifying that they were financially stable for 2 years. Well, CPAs don't do that. And so they worked with the department to come up with this change, which allows them to still, this is a requirement that if you're a new company and you're going to start assisted living or one of these facilities, that you have to, with a CPA of your choosing, it has to submit forms and the backup information that shows that you are financially sound and that it's likely to be a viable institution. And they do this because we had some of them close just on a moment's notice, and we were left with our department trying to find homes for 25 or 35 seniors who thought that they had found their forever home, only to see that the company was going bankrupt. That's the bill. It just corrects this and meets what the CPAs wanted us to do as far as how it would, what we would call it, and it's now a financial stability affidavit, a financial stability affidavit. Mr. Speaker, if there's no questions, I'll yield the well.
You have no questions. Chair Lady has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 160, the nays 6. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, if you'll read the caption to House Bill 414.
House Bill 414 by Representative Blackman of the 146 and others, to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 37 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to governing and regulation of mental health, so as to provide for a grant program within the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities to provide behavioral health services to military service members and veterans. This bill having referred to the Committee on Health, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Couldn't find you there for a minute, Chairman. Chairman Blackman is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Fellow members, once again here to bring you Bill HB 414, which is designed to establish up underneath the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities a grant fund that would match private dollars invested to serve our military service members, our veterans, and their families. That's here in Georgia, subject to appropriation, is consistent with our commitment, I think, to improving mental health and to our veterans. And once again, want to really put a big thank you out to our co-sponsors. I noticed one of them is missing here, but Representative Al Williams, Representative Mary Margaret Oliver, and Chairman Hatchett, along with some others. Mr. Speaker, that's the bill. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions if there are any.
you have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
First, let me address an issue with Representative Jackson. I think you've had a machine issue.
Yes.
So we'll address that issue. And I think maybe you had a question on the last bill. Can I have Chair Lady Cooper come speak with you and see if she can answer that question?
Thank you,
I think that'd be the
Mr. Chair.
appropriate way to handle this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Mr. Chairman, to your right, Representative Maynard has a question, if you'll yield.
Yes.
Thank you, Thank you, Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes.
For the priority status within 50 miles of a military base, since there are so many veteran nonprofit associations, especially in my district in the inner city, how does the grant fund process work? Is it saying that it's going to give priority to those within the 50 miles, and if those funds are then depleted, they're gone? I'm just trying to understand.
The department is designed to set up the rules and regulations as to how to implement this particular program. We just put a few little stipulations out there as to what we'd like to see happen. So I think that would be part of their package, Representative Maynard. Hope that answers your question.
I'll talk to you later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, yield.
I will, sir.
Let's see, we have a new member with a question. The gentleman from the 172nd House District, Representative Chaz Cannon, has a question to your right.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I yield.
Is it true that this bill, or not true that this bill, would help military service members and their families?
I believe the gentleman knows what he speaks. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your service as well. Gentlemen, yield for a couple more.
I will yield for one more question. Yes, sir.
Representative Gladney has a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, as a veteran myself, inquiring whether or not, is it true that this bill provides additional resources for veterans who already receive veterans care through their veterans benefits? This grant adds additional resources to that care?
It could be utilized in that very manner. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, I know we have a busy schedule today. I would ask for this body's favorable consideration and yield the well.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there an objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 167, the nays 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, if you'll read the caption to HB 416.
House Bill 416 by Representative Cooper, the 45th, and others to be entitled an act to amend Article 3, Chapter 4, Title 26 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to the practice of pharmacy so as to authorize qualified pharmacy technicians to administer certain vaccines. This bill having referred to the Committee on Health, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Chair Lady Silcox to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I bring to you this afternoon House Bill 416. House Bill 416 is the product of over 2 years of negotiations between the legislature, industry, and they have come together to this negotiation to basically extend the rights of qualified pharmacy technicians to give vaccines. The federal emergency, of course, necessitated the creation of qualified pharmacy technicians, and that the federal order is supposed to expire on May 11th of this year. Under this legislation, pharmacy technicians will be required to undergo extensive training. They will have to complete a course by the Accreditation Council for Pharmacy Education. They will also have to have basic cardiac life support certification and complete a minimum of 2 hours of training on immunizations relating to continuing pharmacy education. And also, they will only be allowed to give vaccines to persons 18 and older, no children. So I would ask for your favorable consideration of House Bill 416.
You have no questions.
Thank you. I'll yield the well. Thank you.
The lady has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 164, the nays 2. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to House Bill 475? 475.
House Bill 475 by Representative Smith of the 18th to be entitled an act to amend the official code of Georgia annotated so as to revise, modernize, and correct errors or omissions in and react statutory proportions of the code. This bill has been referred to the Committee on Code Revision. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Chairman Tyler Paul Smith to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of this august body, I bring to you House Bill 475. This is our annual code revision bill, which revises, modernizes, and corrects errors or omissions in our official code of Georgia annotated. It reflects the work of Legislative Council in the off-season, with them going through and finding those parts that need revision, reenactment, and for publication of the code. In essence, at the end of the day, this is a bill that cleans up minor, non-substantive errors in the code that Legislative Council has so diligently found for us that we need to eliminate. With that, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield for 2 questions.
You have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask this body's favorable consideration.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of the bill. The yeas were 168, the nays 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, if you'll read the caption to HB 497.
House Bill 497 by Representative LaHood of the 175th to be entitled an act to amend Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to health, so as to authorize the use of certified medication aids in penal institutions. This bill having referred to the Committee on Human Relations and Aging, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chairman John LaHood is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. House Bill 497 is a workforce bill that impacts penal institutions, and what it does is allows certified medication aids for the first time to be employed in a penal institution. Certified medication aids have been a thing for about 12 years, but focused in the long-term care areas, assisted living and skilled nursing homes, and they administer medicines in those settings now, and so this bill would allow them to do the same thing in a penal institution. This bill is supported by the Department of Corrections and the Department of Community Health, as well as advocates in the hallway, and I'd appreciate your favorable consideration. Mr. Speaker, if there's any questions, I'll take them.
The gentleman has no questions.
Thanks for your favorable consideration. Yield the well.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? Chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machine. So we're going to postpone 212 to next legislative day. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 167, the nays 0. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to HB 518?
House Bill 518 by Representative Cameron of the 1st and others to be entitled an act to amend Title 34 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to labor and industrial relations so as to change certain provisions relating to employment security. This bill having referred to the Committee on Industry and Labor, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Representative Mike Cameron is recognized to present the bill.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, colleagues. I bring a bill today on behalf of the Georgia Department of Labor regarding administrative assessments. In 1987, the legislature passed a bill creating an administrative assessment for employers in the state of Georgia. This small amount of wages, percentage of wages, goes towards the administrative cost of the Department of Labor. It's been renewed numerous times over the years. Unfortunately, in 2022, it was not renewed, and it sunset and reverted back to a rate that was before 1987 based on the tables from the Department of Labor. This bill will put it back at the rate that it was last year, which is 2.64%. The second part of the bill is Article 6, creates a percentage assessment of 0.06% that will be assessed to new employers who haven't built up the experience with the Department of Labor. Mr. Speaker, that's the bill. I'll answer any questions.
The gentleman yield for a question.
Yes, sir. I yield.
The lady from the 108th, Representative Jasmine Clark, to your left, has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
So can you clarify, you said new employers will have 0.06% fee on top of the 2.64%?
That's correct, because they don't have an experience built up with the Department of Labor. The rates are based on, it's almost like an insurance rate. The newer you are, the higher your rate is. As they build up experience with the department, the rate will be calculated at a lower rate.
Does the gentleman further yield?
Yes, ma'am.
When do you stop becoming new? So how long will these newer businesses be required to pay the extra 0.06%?
That hadn't been specified.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gentleman yield for one more question.
Yes, sir.
Chairman Casey Carpenter has a question to your right in the rear.
Does the gentleman yield?
To my friend from Dalton, yes.
Yeah, is it not true that typically happens after 3 years? After 3 years, the rate changes after the review process?
That's pretty much correct, unless the employer has a giant a number of claims against their unemployment with the state, it would drop. Thank you.
Gentleman has no further questions.
Then I yield the well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And that's for your favor consideration.
There is another speaker on the bill who wishes to be heard. Representative Holly is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All right. Thank you, members, for being able to hear me on this bill. Fortunately, I can say that while it was heard in the Industry and Labor Committee, many times we actually have a very good job of actually being able to bring questions on these matters to the forefront. Unfortunately for that day, my high blood pressure was a little elevated, so thanks to your prayers, I was able to come back, but I could not actually pose these questions in committee, so I would like to address them here. And it's coming from a very different position than you might actually hear. This is really not something that we're seeing of, Republicans and Democrats fighting it out. Nah. This is merely a measure I think that we should look into, particularly because we know that we've already seen a pandemic. We know that in order for us to have Georgia in a stable position, we need to be able to build back our accounts for our unemployment and insurance trust fund. And right now, because the rates that are particularly, if you're looking section 1 and lines 37 to 41, we're seeing that the contribution rates for employers is actually, it's becoming suppressed. We know that, and I think probably all of us can agree in this chamber, that we know that the Federal Reserve, it's not above them to actually, in order to address the inflation, we know that they are willing to put the economy into another recession. And so therefore, we need to be able to make sure that we are shoring up the investments into our unemployment insurance trust fund, but we have to do that in a way that does not have it so that only a minority of those employers are shoring up those funds. We need to make it so that it is broad across the board. If you'll notice, just follow with me if you will. I know some of this is a little granular. But if you look, for instance, for our section 1, you look for line 17, where you get part A, and compare that for line 32, that 2.64, the variance from that 2.7% to 2.64%. The part is that really you're looking at this on overall, Georgia's employers, for the most part, are paying at 1.23% into that trust fund. And so, we want to make sure that it actually is more balanced. When only 12% of the UI benefit payouts are attributed to employers who lay off workers who then enroll in unemployment insurance, they're assessed when determining Georgia's employees' level of trust fund solvency responsibility, and that's compared to a nationwide average of around 45%. So we again want to be on par, because we know that should Georgia find ourselves in a situation where we're now having to pay money out for unemployment insurance, we don't want to have our state have those funds dwindle down to where now we're having to rely on other states to borrow money from other states and to borrow it at a higher interest rate. We want to make sure that if we can be able to have it so that employers of themselves, new employers coming in, that 2.64%, that we can actually match that up. So that 2.7% is groundly, it's one that employers are paying into. Then we know that it's going to be able to help to be able to shore up those resources should we get into a situation where we're having a recession, okay? So I know a lot of this sometimes you look and saying, well, you know what, isn't that just at the federal level? What are we doing this for? Can't we rely on the U.S. government to bail us out? But we already know that it's always better if we can be, I know it's probably going to be a surprise for you to hear a Democrat say this, it's probably best if we be conservative with our assets, making sure that our unemployment insurance trust fund actually has the money available. How will this help individuals in each of your districts? Very easily. Y'all forgive my Uncle Al. He done ate too much and too many jokes right now. But here's, okay, all jokes aside, really, because it's not a funny measure.
Gentlemen, yield.
I'm sorry.
Gentlemen, suspend just for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Respect the gentleman in the well. Continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We all want to make sure that for those workers who have to find those job opportunities, that they're able to do so not because they're reliant their whole life on this little bit of money for the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund. We want to make sure that they're able to just get their resumes, be able to get, suits, get job training, get what's necessary to allow for Georgia to continue to remain competitive for those jobs that are coming here. And we know that money is actually through the Unemployment Trust Fund. So we just want to make sure that while enough attention to detail has been explained for that 0.06% that is going to be drawn out for the administrative assessment fee by the that will come to the commissioner, we want to make sure that our reserves are stored up for those workers should they find themselves jobless so that we can remain the #1 state in the country for doing business. We have to take care of Georgia workers, and by making sure that amount is actually one that our employers are able to pay into, that it's fair across the board, we won't be relying on other states to help us pony up funds when we need them. And that is all I have, but I appreciate, I would only suggest that you vote no on this bill. So when it comes back to committee, we have an opportunity to actually have an amount that's going to be fair and equitable for all Georgia businesses. And for that, I will yield the well.
The gentleman has yielded the well. The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee's substitute? Chair hears none. The committee's substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. For what purpose does Chairman Werkheiser rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Actually, this was a question for the author that just left because I'm a little confused if the reason he's trying to get this body to vote against this bill because the rate is not enough. It sounds counterintuitive to get this body to vote this bill down, which would give us a zero rate, and 0 times anything is 0. So at any time a member of this body can drop a bill for a different rate, but voting against this bill would do the exact opposite of what the speaker just requested. Not true.
That didn't help me, but if the gentleman so states, I get it. For what purpose does Representative Maynor rise?
Thank you, Speaker. Is it not true?
Is this a parliamentary inquiry?
Parliamentary inquiry, please.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that I was going to ask Representative Holly a question, but he yielded the will? And is it not further true that I was going to ask, in his mind, if we change the 600th of a percentage point, would it be in his eyes that he would rather the employers, the business community, to have a higher percentage rate to contribute to this fund? Is that not true?
I'm sure the lady believes that to be true. She so states. We're going to take a couple more and then we're going to finish this one up. Representative Wilkerson. Let's see. For what purpose does Representative Wilkerson rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that if we do not pass this bill, then the rate would go back up to 2.7 versus falling down to 2.64? Therefore, as a result of the pandemic and the run on unemployment, that we may want to go back to 2.7 to help shore up that reserve, and I believe that is what the author is looking for, or the gentleman that was speaking in the well is looking for.
I'm sure the gentleman has expertise in this area, and he's correct in what he so states. Last one. Let's see. He did present his ideas, but we'll give him one more shot. For what purpose does Representative Holly rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, sir.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true, for one, that this is a very convoluted measure, and so I appreciate people at least trying to stay paying attention? That number two, I appreciate the request for my colleague to try to attempt to at least put a question towards me. And that three, and finally, Mr. Speaker, that all this we're asking for is that if this bill goes back to committee, that at least it could be discussed for a fair rate, not a rate of zero. Because again, we want to make sure that if at all possible, businesses can be able to pay in for it. We all believe that Georgia is the #1 state in the country for doing business, but we just want to make sure that for those jobs that come to our state, our workers who are maybe jobless may be able to use those funds because they're available, because they're there. That will allow for them to be able to get the training and the resources necessary to get into the jobs of the future. And that is all, sir.
I'm sure the gentleman believes in his inquiry, and it was in there someplace. Is there any excuse me, you got me mixed up now. Let's see, Mr. Clerk. We've got all the members have voted, I think. I believe we have. Have you members, all of you voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of the bill. The yeas are 105, the nays 64. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. We have one remaining bill on today's calendar, and House Bill 212 will be postponed to the next legislative day. Well, we're ready for afternoon orders. Representative Holly kind of talked me in a circle there, but we got to the end. We'll move on to afternoon orders. We'll recognize Representative Edna Jackson and Representative Al Williams for an afternoon order. We're ready. Representative Jackson is recognized, and Representative Ann Allen Westbrook will join them. Members, give the members in the well your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to my fellow, Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry. Thank you, Al, for correcting me. and, and members of the chamber. Today I honor a gentleman from Savannah, Wesley Wallace Law, for his life work with the NAACP. Mr. Law was the first elected Savannah branch president of the NAACP at the age of 27, the youngest major branch president in the country. He was also the longest serving president of the Savannah branch for 26 years. He served as state conference president and as a member of the NAACP National Board of Directors. Mr. Law was also a historian, a founder of the King Tisdale Foundation, the Beach Institute, and the Ralph Mark Gilbert Civil Rights Museum. In celebration of Black History Month and in recognition of Mr. Law's 100th birthday, born 1923 in Savannah, Georgia, in an area of great inequities and social injustice, he earned a modest income as a postman and went on to become an icon in civil rights as a historian, teacher, preservationist, and an inspiring presence in the community. In 1948, he graduated from Georgia State College, now Savannah State University, and received the first honorary doctorate from Savannah State. Founder of the Ralph Mark Gilbert Civil Rights Museum, in March of 1960, under his leadership, the sit-ins and kneel-in movements began, along with church wade-ins at Tybee Island as well. Economic boycott of the downtown Savannah area under his leadership. Savannah designated him as Mr. Civil Rights. Dr. Martin Luther King said, when he came to speak in Savannah, that we did not need his leadership, that we had excellent leadership. Mr. Law, let's honor him, my colleagues. You see, for lives of great men all remind us, we shall make our lives sublime, and departing leave behind us footprints on the sands of time. Will you please rise with me as we salute Wesley Wallace Law, a man for all seasons. Thank you.
Representative Sharper, recognized for an afternoon order.
I've got sunshine on a cloudy day, and when it's cold outside, I've got the Mother May. Well, I guess you say, what can make me feel this way? My girl, talking about my girl, my girl. This is my Black History moment. The Temptations are an American vocal group from Detroit, Michigan, who released a series of successful singles and albums with Motown Records during the 1960s and 1970s, featuring 5 male vocalists and dancers: Otis Williams, Elbridge Al Bryant, Melvin Franklin, and Eddie Kendricks, and Paul Williams of the Primes. In 1964, Bryant was replaced by David Ruffin, who was the lead vocalist on a number of the group's biggest hits, including My Girl, Ain't Too Proud to Beg, and I Wish It Would Rain. Over the course of their career, the Temptations released 4 Billboard Hot 100 #1 singles and 14 R&B #1 singles. 3 classic Temptations songs are My Girl, Just My Imagination, Run Away With Me, and Papa Was a Rolling Stone. Thank y'all. Thank you, Speaker.
That certainly was a fitting tribute to the Temptations. Representative Washburn is recognized for an afternoon order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The best news you have today is I will not sing to you. I just wanted to let you know that the Georgia Association of Realtors is here for the next 2 days for their Days at the Dome events. And of course, you all know what our realtors do for us. They help you buy and sell your houses, your commercial property, and your farm and timberland. They're a very important part of the economy of our state, so be looking for them tomorrow as they'll be dropping by to see you. Thank you.
Representative Tran is recognized for an afternoon order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm here today to tell you a story about a woman, the only woman I fear more than my wife. 48 years ago, she did everything she could to reach my father, to escape communism and hop on a helicopter and come to America. And in the 48 years since landing in America, she has fought poverty, bigotry to raise 4 successful kids. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. And, you know, she's got one more fight she's fighting right now. She's stage 4 cancer is what she's fighting. But I am confident that today will not be the last day that I tell her, happy birthday, Mom, I love you.
What a wonderful legacy your mother is leaving and is imparted into you, and our prayers will be with her. Thank you. That completes our afternoon orders. For what purpose does Representative Victor Anderson rise?
To make a motion?
State your motion.
I move that House Bill 331 be transferred from Ways and Means to Governmental Affairs, and both committees agree. Both chairmen agree.
The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 331 by Representative Anderson of the 10th and others to be entitled an act to amend Part 2 of Article 3, Chapter 5 of Title 4080 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to tax collectors.
On the gentleman's motion, HB 331 be withdrawn from Ways and Means Committee and recommitted to Government Affairs Committee. Is there objection? Hearing none, it is so ordered. For what purpose does Chairman Perkle rise?
Make a motion.
State your motion.
Request that HB 607 be moved from education to higher education. Both chairmen agree.
Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 607 by Representative Perkle of the 169th and others to be entitled an act to amend Part 7 of Article 7 of Chapter 3 of Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to Hope Scholarships and Grants.
On the gentleman's motion that HB 607 be withdrawn from the Education Committee and recommitted to the Higher Ed Committee, excuse me, is there objection? Hearing none, it is so ordered. We're ready for our announcements. Chairman Gunther is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The House Judiciary Committee will meet upon adjournment. We have a busy schedule, but hopefully we can get through all those bills. Thank you.
Chair Lady Ballinger is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Juvenile Justice Committee meeting will be today at 3 in room 515 in the CLOB. Again, that's at 3 in room 515 in the CLOB. Thank you very much.
Chairman Powell is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Regulated Industries Committee will meet at 3 o'clock in 606.
And my thanks to Chair Lady Cooper. They're going to another room to make up the difference in their time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If you could, please be there.
All working together. Representative Anderson, recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Governmental Affairs Elections Subcommittee will meet in room 415 CLOB upon adjournment, and the State and Local Subcommittee will meet either 1 hour after that or immediately upon adjournment of the Election Subcommittee. Thank you.
Chairman Chokus is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm freeing up another room and a time. Tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, the Small Business Development Committee will not be meeting. Will not be meeting tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. Small Business Development. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, sir. Chairman Dickey, recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Agricultural and Consumer Affairs Committee will be meeting in the morning at 8 o'clock over at 606 CLOB. And don't forget your peanut butter and jelly grilled sandwich tomorrow, too. So, thank you.
I'll be there. Chairman Newton, recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Ways and Means Subcommittee on Tax Revision will meet immediately on adjournment up in room 403 at the Capitol. Thank you.
Representative Jasmine Clark, recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. GHDC Policy Committee, we will meet today at 3 o'clock p.m., 605 CLOB.
Chair Camp is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As in many times we make plans and someone with more knowledge of us changes them. So today, Intergovernmental Coordination will be meeting in room 406 upon adjournment for a brief meeting. Thank you.
Chair Lady Cooper is recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Public and Community Health will meet today. We will meet, but it will be at 3:30 in room 506. So at 3:30 in room 506. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That completes our announcements. The words we love to hear. The Majority Leader of this House is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that this House stand in recess until 4 p.m. and at that time adjourn until 10 a.m. on Wednesday, March 1st, 2023.
On the motion of the Majority Leader that this House stands in recess until 4 p.m. today, Tuesday, February the 28th, 2023, and at that time we will adjourn until Wednesday, March the 1st, 2023 at 10 a.m. All those in favor of the motion will say aye. All those opposed will say no. Yep, the ayes have it. We are in recess and then adjourned.